traffic backlogs disrupted thousands of drivers today as activists blocked key motorways in protest against the cost of fuel, which keeps going up. On the M4 in Wales, drivers slowed to 30 miles an hour, slower in other places. The delays were so bad that people got out of their cars to play football. Police confirmed 12 people were arrested and vehicles were seized for putting emergency services at risk. And it comes just a day after Formula One driver Lewis Hamilton and TV presenter Gary Lineker showed their support for the Just Stop Oil protesters who invaded the track at the British Grand Prix and Silverstone this weekend. Some, though, weren't so supportive. Formula One commentator Martin Brundle said the sit-in was reckless. And it certainly was. I mean, it was quite an extraordinary event, the British Grand Prix. There was an incredible crash which you would have thought would have resulted in somebody being hurt,
yes.
but nobody was. But these Just Stop Oil maniacs sat actually on the track where cars go at 200 miles an hour and more, and didn't really make much of an impact. They just sort of sat there and then were led away. It seemed to be the most ridiculous thing. So it shows to me that Gary Lineker is so far out of touch with reality that he really needs to go and take a very long holiday somewhere, I think.
But I mean, but this is not peaceful protest, is it?
It's really
not. This is incredibly dangerous. In fact, both protests aren't peaceful at all. They're not peaceable or peaceful. In fact, they're dangerous and possibly, you know, the sorts of things that will be the catalyst for incredible numbers of fatalities. And incredibly dangerous and a terrible idea. And I don't support them in any shape or form. They can protest on the hard shoulder. They can protest in the grounds of the Formula One, but not on the track and not on the road.
No, that I think is ridiculous. But the rolling sort of slow protest, I think I have a bit more sympathy for, because it's not stopping anything. When the Just Stop Oil people sit on the road or glue themselves to the M25, everything stops, right? Whereas these guys were just going slow, which quite often, you know, happens anyway on motorways. An awful lot of the time you can't go very quickly. And also the sort of people who were demonstrating were like HGV drivers. There was a woman interviewed on talkTV earlier today who said she's lost her job. You know, HGV drivers who work for themselves, they're paying thousands of pounds to fill up their lorries.
Well, they are.
And the cost of petrol doesn't seem to even touch the sides of any politician, because they don't pay for it. They don't know what it's like.
Mike.
And in the end, hang on a minute, and in the end, the only time they sit up and take any notice, apparently, is when people protest.
I think you're going soft.
Why?
Because I don't think these protests are going to achieve the aims. I think you're right to mention and say, and I think we all think, that fuel needs to be acted upon. And in fact, it's a government move. When you've got something where 60% is tax, and also you've got a cost of living crisis, which is largely contributed by fuel. And you could take the VAT off the fuel prices for domestic, which is at 5%, and within petrol, where there's 60%, you've got duty and various other things that you could change. Immediately, that would reduce inflation, and immediately it would take action. The government has taken no action. I don't think these protests, though, necessarily point to the right answer, and I don't think they get the public necessarily behind them, because I think they inconvenience all of us. And I think these are stupid protests. They're historic. It's a very unintelligent way of getting their message across when there are so many better ways to do it.
Yeah, but
it's
I disagree.
boring.
This isn't like Extinction Rebellion people. These are everyday people. These are the working class man and woman who are doing the protests.
Oh, what a lot of rubbish.
No, but it is. So for me, actually, I support them. I think, and like Mike said, they're not stopping traffic. They're just reducing the speed ever so slightly.
I think it's ineffective.
So I think maybe you don't. Yeah, you might think it's inoffensive, but actually, for me, you're annoyed about it, and I'm here saying to you, actually, I think it's okay. Yeah. They're doing the right thing. They are on the right side of history.
It's not going to help achieve the results that you want.
But James, you saying it's ineffective, Mike, you were like, this is not impactful. But it's got us all talking about it. We're dedicating a whole segment to talking about it.
I didn't say it wasn't.
Oh, sorry, ineffective.
That's it.
You're saying it's ineffective.
Not me.
But look, I completely am against anybody doing a kind of protest that is going to ultimately endanger themselves. But desperate times call for desperate measures. And this isn't a new form of protest. We look back over 100 years ago now at Emily Davison, who ran in front of the horses at Epsom, and she got killed. And people like ourselves would have been saying exactly the same thing 100 years ago. If these people, these young people, ultimately believe so strongly in a cause and they will take action like this, I'm with Lewis Hamilton and Gary Lineker.
Well, Lewis Hamilton changed his mind at the end of the day. He actually said that it was very dangerous what they did. They shouldn't have done it.
He said that he supported their cause, but not necessarily in the way that they did.
He makes a living from petrol.
Exactly. You know? How can he makes a living from petrol and from flying in private jets? How on earth can he possibly have anything sensible to say? He should stay quiet. But I agree with you about how important it is. People like us raising this when we get the opportunity to speak to politicians. I think we know how serious this is. All of us agree that the fuel crisis that we have, the cost of living crisis, is probably the #1 thing on everybody's minds. And it's our job to help bring it to the fore. But these protests, I don't think they help. They're actually adding to the cost, they're adding to the stress. And in fact, we need to hold our politicians to account. They're the ones who, on this particular issue, can actually do something. And they're not doing anything.
I'm with you on the ladies and gentlemen who glued themselves to the motorway because that caused chaos for the working people. I don't think that stopping an F1 race affects working people.
Oh, that's just stupid.
Well, okay.
And dangerous, and
It is
foolhardy,
of
and
course.
potentially dangerous, not to the people who are protesting, but everybody else.
But what were the
Appalling
security
idea.
guards doing? This is what I would say as well. Is how bad is the security at the F1 that they would allow people in orange T-shirts just to run and sit on the track?